Good morning, all fine folks and fogies, whatever the hell is going on in your sector of the world. Today I am sipping on a caffeinated beverage, not a coconated beverage, because I'm not drinking cocoa because I am broke. Coca extract is expensive. But I'm going to talk about today one of the worst decisions in my life. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but it really haunted me for years. And it's taken me a long time to shed this person's influence. This person is the, just archetypal example of a toxic individual. Someone who absolutely has to be right, even if they're not in every situation, and will make you feel their wrath if you even make any inclination of a retort as to them being wrong. Someone who has to share their vices with everyone so they feel normalized about the shitty things they're doing to their own body. Someone who, takes advantage of minors despite being an adult. Someone who steals, manipulates. The list goes on. The story will speak more about this person, so you'll pick it up along the way. Now, this takes me back to the ripe age of 14. So, towards the end of grade 9, grade 10, because here's the thing. When I was a kid, I started smoking that reefer. First week of high school. Didn't take long to escalate into other stuff. I was popping ecstasy tabs, towards the end of grade 8. Like grade 9, digging that acid, digging those mushrooms. A little too much, if you ask me now, in retrospect. But it all seemed like a good idea at the time. Because, you have no perception of real consequences at that age. And so, how I met this person was that our drug dealer, the main guy we got all our psychedelic goodies off of, he lived with her because she was his long-time partners, but they were broken up for a couple of years, but were living together because they both sold drugs. And I would come to find out they were both spiraling into addiction together. And so, they lived in this, really run-down sort of co-op, and we ended up spending a lot of time there, and it was basically a house where vagrants would just come and go. Everyone was addicted to something. Everyone was way older than us, a good 10 years older than us. And so, I remember meeting her a couple of times when the guy would go, okay, I'm sending my girl, he'd still say that, my girl, to go bring the stuff. And I met her, she was cute, she was really cute. She was really short, and I always had a thing for short chicks. I was 6'2" back in high school, I had a growth spurt fairly quickly, I was one of those kids who was shorter than all my friends. And then in grade 8, just shot up. And when the classes would end and everyone would pile out into the hallways, I'd just see a sea of heads bobbing beneath me like that. Such a weird experience. But anyways, I always had a thing for shorter girls for some reason. Still do. And she had ginger kind of hair, a little past shoulder length. Some of the straightest hair I've ever seen. A septum piercing, and in my city, septum piercings are a dime a dozen. They got old really fast, but I know she managed to rock it in a way that was pretty cool. And she had a kind of punk rock look about her, even though she really knew nothing about music. Really. But we'd buy off her a couple times, we'd call her at 3 in the morning when we're flailing all night, just trying to make the most out of having only enough money to buy drugs and, making the night last and cool shit happen, yada yada, etc., etc. And she was like, yeah, you kids look like fun. Why don't we hang out sometime? So we started hanging out. And, same dealio. We would just party all night. She would feed us drugs and, so it was just like our same routine, but with her, and we were all in fucking awe of her presence, man. Like, we're like, oh, it's just so cool. She's like 10 years older than us, and she treats us as sort of equals, and oh, isn't she just the shit? And like, we just could not wait to hang out with her again. So we started hanging out pretty much every night, and that's when all us guys started to kind of like, have a little bit of a thing for her, because we knew her boyfriend that she lived with, her ex-boyfriend, was, well, her ex-boyfriend. She expressed how she, had distaste for him and wished she could be living somewhere else. And so, I remember I thought she started to have a thing for one of my friends, but I think he kind of blew it. The thing is with her, she could not tolerate alcohol at all. She'd have like 2 shots, and then she would just become the most spiteful, arrogant, unpleasant person ever. And she'd pretty much black out. Like, her gimme kind of mentality would go up, 11-fold. And so one night we're drinking, and then she starts holding my friend's hand, and they apparently made out. I didn't see this, but then the next time we hung out, it was kind of awkward. She tried to be near him, but he was just sort of, he's a kid. We're all awkward when, we're young virgins and shit. Sure, like, I've gone BJ's and stuff by that age, but I still haven't had sex, actually. It was her that I lost my virginity to. But, about a year or so later. So then I started talking to her, and the thing was, I didn't hang out with her as much as they did, because I actually went to school and finished high school. These guys were skipping all their classes, and they weren't doing shit. I needed to finish high school, because it's kind of a prerequisite for doing anything in this world, which is unfortunate, but it's the truth. And so, I didn't get to know her on as deep a level as they did, but then I started to, and she started to kind of express these feelings for me. And then we started kind of cuddling, holding hands, stuff like that. And I started to introduce her to people outside of that little niche friend group. And, next thing you know, we're spending every day together, and she's like my sugar mama. She's buying me this and that, and, we're kind of playfully making out and all that, and, we spent this one summer together where I was actually selling drugs, something that made her very envious, because I was doing a good job at it, and just kind of out of the gate. But we were partying almost every day at my buddy's dad's apartment, because my buddy's dad was working in basically like the boonies of our province. So we had it to ourselves, and we were just doing every drug imaginable except for the hard stuff. And so her and one of her friends who was smoking, but I think like kind of a sociopath and a little bit psychotic, I came to find out, they would just hang out with me and my buddy whose dad owned the apartment, and it was a really chill arrangement, and my friend, of course. So 2 dudes, 2 girls. It was great. They'd make us food every night, roll some blunts. We'd smoke until we couldn't stand, and I think this was around the time that the girl I was interested in started doing heroin. And so, because I noticed she'd take off, she'd go to the bathroom, whatever, she'd come out, and act really like kind of, someone on heroin, nodding off a little bit and whatnot. But then she'd break out a bunch of ketamine, like a gram. She'd be like, hey, who wants to share this gram with me? And I like ketamine, so he's like, I'll do it, sure. And she'd basically give me a half gram to do in one go. So we'd spend the night just like, I can't stand, I can't think on what the fuck's going on. And then we'd go to hang out at her house sometimes, and I noticed she'd be like, do you mind if I smoke down in front of you? But I had no idea what down was at the time. I took out some foil, a little brown powder. She was smoking. Come to find out it's heroin. But I was like, no, whatever. She's not doing it all the time. It seems like I thought in my mind, this was my reasoning, she's only doing it the times that I see her doing it. I think it was like a form of just denial that was going on in my mind. But yeah, no, we spent the summer with her. It was amazing. And the last day we spent together before she went off was a night we spent out in a very, very, like, sweltering tent. Just all this heat and steam building, and 5 people in it. And that night, me and her were making out, and I tried to cop a feel. I think I kind of I went a little too far that time. And so I didn't see her. She was gone by the morning. And yeah, so, and the thing is, I found out she had pierced titties, which I was like, fuck yeah, dude, fuck yeah, buddy. But then a year later, I hear from her. She's like, let's hang out, dude. She stands me up. I get really drunk as a result, make some stupid decisions. A couple months later, I hear from her again. She's like, oh, I'm coming back from the island. I got clean. I'm clean of hard drugs. And I was like, oh, good for you. And I wanted to be supportive, but I was also nervous about being around her because of what we kind of had before. And so I got a little drunk. And we met up, and she was just like, we're hanging out and telling her some stories about mutual friends and all that. Just giving her a recap of what happened over the last year. And then she's like, oh, you're so handsome. She's like, you had the sexy, like, vampire werewolf teeth there, the canine. And I was like, yeah, most dudes do, most people do. But then she was like, oh, can I kiss you? And I was like, fuck yeah. So, kiss her, and she's like, let's go back to your place, let's make out a bit. It's like, okay, go back to my place. Making out went from clothes off, and holy fuck, I'm having sex for the first time in my life, but someone who's 10 years older than me, so I gotta make it like I've had sex a million times already. As I said, I had some kind of like toothy, sloppy BJs from girls my age at that time, but never went all the way. I was still an awkward 15-year-old. And yeah, so needless to say, we had sex, and actually went pretty well. And I was so nervous that I couldn't come, so I ended up fucking for like an hour and a half. And I found with chicks that I fucked, if I don't splurge in like the first hour, they start to get like friends like, oh, I gotta make him fucking jizz, and that's when it starts to get fun. But yeah, no, then we started like dating, and after that was a year of just self-destruction. Like, I couldn't really bear her nasty sides, which I got to know very quick. Like, she was very judgmental, she was very diminutive, very protective, and she did a lot of kind of power plays to make herself seem slightly above everyone else. And since I was drinking to kind of cope with her, she started drinking. And as I said, she couldn't tolerate her alcohol very well. And so that made her very nasty. Like, I remember we went to meet up with all the old gang who we hung out with, a year and a half prior. And she was so hammered off 3 beers, she was just all over me, making out with me, trying to fucking tackle me to the ground so she could kiss me and dry hump me and shit. and it was just making everyone uncomfortable. And so then her dad took off that summer, not like for a pack of cigarettes and never came back, like he had to work or something like that. And so we got to party at her place and just drank way too much and did way too much cocaine and stuff like that. And, alcohol, for those who are addicts probably know, is a good gateway to back to using, the drugs you're using before, because it lowers your inhibitions. And so, I think she started to use again. And at this point in my life, I was pretty, normalized to heroin. Like, her older friends would come over, and they would be users, and she would shoot them up and stuff like that. And it disgusted me, but, I was just so used to seeing it that it didn't really bother me after a while. But in my mind, I was still I fucking hate this. I will never do heroin. Well, look what happens. And so, yeah, I spent a lot of drunk-ass nights together doing stupid shit with kids all my age, way too young for her to hang out with. And then I get, a call to do some work up in Alberta with a buddy, so I leave for a month, and, first few days I get calls from her. It's very, very, I miss you, blah, 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 I'm wearing your shirt you gave me, and I can't take it off, sort of thing. And then nothing after a while, and I'm having trouble getting in touch with her. Then I get a call from a friend of mine who's hanging out at that house. She was like, you know what, man, I'm worried about her. She seems to be doing hard drugs again. She's kind of fucking around with one of your friends. And I was like, what? Seriously? And so I finally come back, and with that in mind, I get really drunk, and I do a lot of cocaine, and I call her, and I'm like, yo, we're done, man. Do not even think of me as a boyfriend or a brother or anything like that. We're done. She's like, okay, fine. Because the thing is, when I got back, I gave her 3 days. She knew I was back to contact me, and I heard nothing. I tried contacting her once, but I wasn't going to fucking badger her. So, ended it, and I hooked up with someone else that night. That's the closest I've ever come to cheating on someone. But I broke up with her, so it was fair and square. But yeah, it wasn't long after that I started doing oxys. Oxy 80s I would get, smoke them like she smoked her down, and then oxys got regulated in Canada, so you could only get oxy neos, which were abuse-proof. If you tried to crush them up and snort them, they would just turn into gel in your nose. If you tried to smoke them, they would turn into gel. Tried to shoot them up, they'd turn into gel. You couldn't abuse them, basically. But heroin, I knew was about the same thing. And since heroin was normalized to me, I started doing it. Started sniffing it at first, but once every month for 6 months, twice every month after that. Then that's when I started fucking around with the needles, because I found out shooting up cocaine was a hell of a rush. It was a rush like nothing else I'd ever done. And then soon enough I'm mixing the two and whatnot. But I was also put on methadone before the heroin. I told my doctor that I was doing oxys and stuff like that. And so my doctor was like, you're an addict. Here's some methadone. So I got addicted to methadone, and then that, I guess, was also, for me, the perfect excuse to start acting like an addict and doing heroin. So that was also, a pretty big precursor. But yeah, I remember with her, when I was 15, 16, I would do this thing that, in hindsight, just kind of fucked up and showed that I knew exactly what was going on, but I was repressing the reality of it. And I would go, statutory rape, 26-year-old and this 15-year-old statutory rape, or I guess you're being 25 when I was 16, I think. I could be wrong about that. In that age frame, but yeah, so I knew exactly what was happening, but I was making a complete joke out of it because I was like head over heels for her at the time. And yeah, I think it was very much statutory rape. And you know, the thing is now she seems to be in a very bad place. Like, I heard she ended up in the hospital with endocarditis, which is what addicts can potentially get from shooting up, because it's kind of like a staph infection where the bacteria is like everywhere. But if you stick a needle in your skin and you don't sanitize and everything beforehand, it'll bring that bacteria down into your vein, and it will spread through your vein and into your heart. It's like, you know, fatal in many cases. So she spent like 6 months in the ICU not in the ICU, but she was in the ICU and then in the hospital, collectively for 6 months. And last time I saw her, it's probably about a year ago. I was coming back from a buddy's house at 3 in the morning. I was downtown, got off the subway and SkyTrain here, and went to go get a hot dog stand, and saw her by an air vent in the ground, and she had this book, and she was kind of going around, and she looked very, very skinny, and like she was laughing and just, oh, I get it now, I get it, talking to no one, and I was like, oh God, I hope she doesn't see me. So I just kind of looked back into the SkyTrain terminal and took off, and was like, oh God, I'm glad I'm not involved with that anymore. But you know, and I don't really feel bad for her, because she got a lot of my friends to start doing heroin, and then started selling them like fake shit, like flour as heroin. And she ruined a lot of lives because of that. A lot of lives that are way younger than her, way more impressionable than her. But she manipulated them like a cult leader. So, you know, I typically sympathize with most people's positions if they are addicts or whatever, and I don't judge because I don't know their circumstances, but I know her circumstances because I spent enough time with her, and I also have seen the raging wildfire that she set off in my friends group, and you know, she was by far the most destructive thing to that group of people. So my sympathy is, just non-existent for her. But in any case, that is a story about a very poor decision I made in my life. And I urge you, if you're at a young age or whatever, be wary of older ladies hitting on you. It's typically not because they like your personalities, because they want something from you, and they know that you're young, you're impressionable, and you can be manipulated. So, heed my warning. Anyways, have a fantastic day.